Hi everyone, in today's video I am visiting Flamingo Gardens here in South Florida. It consists of botanical gardens, a wildlife sanctuary, and it also has a museum. There's over 60 acres of land and it showcases more than 3,000 species of rare and exotic tropical, subtropical, and native plants. One thing I really like about Flamingo Gardens is it gives residency to permanently injured and non-releasable birds and animals. They also care for threatened or endangered species like the alligator, the snapping turtle, just to name a couple. As you're walking throughout the garden, don't be alarmed when peacocks come up to you. We'll also see an iguana later and plenty of cats. But oh my goodness, how cute is this peahen with her little baby peacocks? I can't even. I love to see how comfortable they are around humans because you know these animals are living the life. These birds have the best life, they're getting the best care. These animals, you can just tell, they're comfortable. Another thing I like about walking around the park is there's so many trees, so there's ample shade and it cools off the whole area. Because if you live in South Florida or if you visit South Florida, you know it can get hot and humid here, and so all the shading from the trees helps significantly. I also enjoy just how many twists, turns, and paths that you can go on. And with so many trails to walk and so many animals to see and just things to do, you can easily spend 2 to 3 hours here and time just flies by. I should also note admission for adults is $24, and if you happen to be a senior citizen or have some sort of other discount, it's around $20. But the admission fee goes right back into the park, so it is for a good cause, and they do have donation bins throughout the park if you decide you want to donate as you're walking around. Continuing to walk, I pass this peahen with her little peacocks again, and I just think it's so cute. They're teaching them how to dig, so I'm sure they're looking for insects or just some sort of food. And right after seeing them, I got to see this giant iguana walking around. Typically, if you see these out in the wild, I mean, they don't want anything to do with humans. A lot of the smaller green ones, they will book it and run into the nearest lake or pond. Another interesting fact about those iguanas and the green ones too, when it gets too cold in Florida, I'm not exactly sure on the temperature, so I'll have to research that, but they actually stop moving. They freeze in time almost. So often when the temperatures do cool down, you will see on the news of just being wary of those iguanas that are possibly even falling from the trees because it's just they freeze and bloop and drop down. Now this area was really cool. You go through double doors to make sure none of these birds escape, but there's actually a pathway that you can walk and be surrounded by a handful of their birds. It's a very calming experience to just be within nature, hear all the bird noises, and the staff at Flamingo Gardens do an amazing job at keeping this whole area clean because typically birds can be messy, you know, they just go potty wherever they want, and so with that comes a smell, yada yada so forth, so there was no smell here. I love seeing the effort that the staff puts into maintaining the grounds because you can just tell they're animal people and they love doing what they do.
Comfy? Doesn't look too comfy. Looks like your kneecaps are bending backwards. They look like a weird flamingo's cousin.
I'm not really sure what's going on with this little guy and what causes his feathers to poke out like that. Regardless, absolutely adorable, and clearly during the time that we were visiting it was mostly nap time for a majority of these birds. But yeah, they are not afraid of humans whatsoever. And another thing I found interesting is if you look up at this aviary with the netting, you have wild birds on top. So I don't know if they're visiting the birds in here. And also with those crows, I don't know if there's maybe a hole somewhere and they come in, or if the crows are supposed to be there because they just look like they were wondering how to get out. I don't know what's with all that. But regardless, it seemed that the birds on the outside and the birds on the inside were equally enjoying their life just as much. There's also plenty of literature throughout the garden, so I would say you're probably going to learn a few things during your visit and leave more educated and aware than prior to your visit to the gardens. Upon your arrival, you'll also be given a map, and according to the map, the flamingos were due to be fed, so I walked over there to check it out.
Hi, Beth.
Really awesome animals. So, hi guys, this is Flamingo Pond. There's 6 species of flamingos on the live. Right here at Flamingo Gardens, we have 3 of them. So the bright pink is the most iconic flamingo.
And And right next door to the Flamingo exhibit is an area where you can get food, drinks, anything like that, because they recommend not bringing outside food and drink into the gardens itself. Although I passed on that, I did not pass on their free tram tour, and it runs continuously throughout the day. It's a nice way to see areas of the park that you might not walk to, because remember, 60 acres is a lot, so having some wheels helps.
In our gardens, I'll be pointing out some plants, animals, and a history along the way. We do have our 3 different species of flamingos. We've got the American flamingo, which is a very dark colored pink flamingo. We've got the greater flamingo, and we've got the Chilean flamingo. Guys, they do get that color from the food they eat. So when they're born, they're white or gray, and it takes about 3 years of eating their select.
The tour guide was fantastic. She drives the truck all the way in the front of the tram, and the whole time she's telling you about the history of the gardens, the animals, just all fun facts to know along the way and keep you involved during the tram ride. So for anyone who isn't an avid reader or care to read, this is a great way to get knowledge without having to do anything.
And also, you see animals like a black bear, a panther, a possum, raccoons, birds, snakes.
The ride does get bumpy at some points, but I was sitting in the way back, mostly so I could turn around and film, but also it's like a school bus. Just think of it like a school bus when you were a kid and you went over some bumps, so it just made it fun realistically. A neat little part about this tram ride is they do make stops along the way if you want. There's a wetlands area that they can actually drop you off at. You can walk around, and literally when our tram ride comes back and parks, another one is taking off. So you would just hang out in whatever area you get dropped off at until the next one comes back around. I wish more parts of Florida was like this, just natural, no buildings, but alas, they just keep building and building and more apartments and more people. So it's nice to be able to get away at a place like this where it is 60 acres of land in nature, and you kind of just go back in time almost. The next stop on the tram ride is a butterfly exhibit, so the tram will actually park, let you go out, and as you're walking through the butterfly exhibit, it will meet you on the other side, so you don't have to wait for another tram ride. You will just hop back on the one that you came on. This butterfly conservatory is fairly new. It was only built in the last couple of years, and it's used for breeding, displaying, and releasing of the native butterflies with an emphasis of education. That's another awesome thing about Flamingo Gardens is the species and everything that they take in and help rehabilitate and stuff. The bird or the animal or whatever might be disabled, but if they have a healthy little baby, they nurture them and release them back into the wild. So it's not like they breed and keep the babies here on site. And as we finish up the tram ride, we did pass the park's 2 swans. A fun fact about swans is typically the 2 will mate for life. So they are a bonded pair. We have that one up front and one in the back napping. He kind of looked a little flat, but we promise he was napping.
Is a red rat snake. They are also known to be the corn snakes because of their checkered patterns on their underbelly. So snakes can't eat very often because they are reptiles. They're cold-blooded. The fancy word is ectotherm.
That's Cuddles. He is an eastern striped skunk. And Cuddles is a special guy, okay? Because he was living at a different facility for his whole life for about 9 years. And they didn't really feed him correctly. And he was overweight. Skunks on average, at least for males, they weigh about 9 pounds, and Cuddles came to us weighing 17 pounds.
These wildlife encounters are a great way to find out facts about these animals, and you really get a connection with them. Like poor Cuddles the skunk, that's what the employee was talking about. When they received him, he was orange and black. So between the color of his fur and him being overweight, it reflected how poor of a diet he was on. But with proper nutrition and exercise, he is a million times better than when they first got him.
He's here because he was hit with a golf ball, fallen on a golf course. Luckily, they were kind enough to take him to the rehab center, and they were able to remove the eye that was the size of a baseball when he was admitted and assessed. So because of that incident, he also lost vision to the right eye, but I think he could see some sort of shadow.
Black bear. I finally get to see my black bear. Oh, look, a squirrel in the black bear encounter.
The wild bear hopping around with its fluffy bushy tail.
The little fluff ball is a black bear. Look at that.
Onward to the otter exhibit. They were excited to see anybody because I think I was about 20 minutes too early to their feeding time, but they are such a funny species. I can't handle them. They're literally like little kids. Oh, look, here he goes. And I mean, if I were an otter, look at this setup. It's like a cabin retreat getaway. You got your little lake, you got your chairs, you got your water slide. I mean, I'm kind of jealous of these otters. They look like they're living it pretty good. This alligator also cracked me up because there's a tiny little lizard that's on the border of his exhibit. I could tell the gator was watching him, but the lizard just zoop, runs away. And I feel like after that, the alligator was like, well, shoot, and that was his little excitement for the day. And of course, I can't leave Flamingo Gardens without showing you some of the cute cats they have around the park. I filmed only 2. There was probably, I saw at least 7. I'm sure they have a ton more on the premises. Before leaving the garden, I did go into the Ray Home Museum where an employee gives you a full in-depth tour. Because of that, I did not record because I didn't want to not be in the moment, you know? And with that, that concludes my little visit to Flamingo Gardens. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want, feel free to like and subscribe. And until next time, bye friends.